Hello, this is Chris with Phoenix Gaming. Today we're going to go through Drukhari characters from the index and we're going to kind of talk about how they interact with the game and how we can use them. We'll talk about each character individually and their role in the army, and once we're all said and done, we'll talk about the winners and the losers. And generally, we're just going to go through them in the order that they appear on the index. First up is the Archon. The attached unit rerolls wound rolls of 1 or full wound rerolls if the unit is empowered. This feels like the attached unit is effectively Trueborn right now. If you remember from previous editions, Trueborn were your better Cabalites, and I think this is really the only way you're going to get a kind of Trueborn interaction out of the army is to just attach an Archon to the unit. Full hit and wound rerolls is really good. They will be pretty efficient, and with Cabalites having some of the weapons options that they do, you'll be able to bring a pretty versatile unit that could do a lot of damage for being just a cheap battle line. Devious Mastermind, you can once per battle increase the cost of a stratagem for your opponent by 1. Obviously, this is limited to 1 strat, not 1 strat per Archon. So even if you have 4 Archons, you can only use it once. And this is great. This is really good. When you consider how modifiers are applied, this allows you to shut down a lot of these top tier armies spamming 0 CP stratagems, getting multiple overwatches or all the other things that are happening right now because captains or different characters can let you use a stratagem for free. If you know that your opponent's game plan relies on spamming a stratagem multiple times in a phase, this is an excellent way to just be like, no. And that's because of how modifiers are applied. So you'll replace it 2-0 from the ability and then add 1. And really, when you look at the core rules also, it'll tell you how they're applied to stratagems in addition to. So he does retain his 2+ invulnerable save until it's failed. That didn't go away. And he's dedicated enhancement, the one that's specifically for him, is on a 4-up, you regenerate a CP or automatically regenerate 1 if you're using Alliance of Agony. And this is awesome because Alliance of Agony is very good. It does require a specific build, but it empowers your Archon, your Homunculus, and your Succubus for 1 command point. So it's an exceptionally good stratagem, and being able to just automatically be like, okay, I spend 1 and I get 1 back. Overall, he's a great character. He's got a lot of utility, and there's some neat combos in here. And here's a couple of ways I would probably work them in. If I take an Archon and a Venom and a Cabalite combat squad, and what I mean by combat squad is when you take a Venom, you can actually break your squads of Cabalites or Witches in half, and then half have to go in the Venom, and then the other half can either go in another Venom or on the table. But you can break them in half. You can put like your 5 special weapons or all your special weapons, maybe not 5, but all your special weapons and your Archon in the Venom, for example, and then the other 5 with just Splinter Rifles can just go hang out on an objective or do whatever. Now, what you can do is you can move the Venom up on your movement phase and then disembark after it moves. You can then empower that unit for full hit and wound rerolls and just throw whatever guns you have at whatever your target is, rerolling everything. But then remember, with the Venom, if you're within, I believe it's 6 inches of it in the fight phase and not within engagement range, you can just hop back in there. So you can just have these dudes jumping around the table doing a bunch of hood rat shit and drive-bys, and they could really frustrate opponents if you're able to pick your proper targets with them. If you decide to come in from reserves with that unit, you can drop the unit down and then use your firing decks on the Venom or Raider and dump a bucket of shots at whatever target you can. You can empower the transport for full hit rerolls because the firing deck takes your guns profile and puts it on its chassis. And then you can strike and fade for a full move in the shooting phase to get it behind cover. Because remember, right now, there's nothing that says you cannot move in the shooting phase if you come from reserves. It only says you cannot move in the movement phase. And I do think this was intentional. I don't think it's going to get changed unless it gets really strongly abused somehow. But there's a lot of utility in that little combo right there. And that's just 1 or 2 ways we could use them. Drazhar is, man, he's still Drazhar, He only attaches to Incubi, which, again, nobody's surprised there, but he is still a melee monster. And when I say this, I need you to remember that we're talking within the context of 10th edition, so he's not going to be as silly as he was in 9th, because melee's been toned down quite a bit from 9th to 10th from what we've seen. He does have one attack profile at strength 6, minus 2 AP, 3 damage. He gets 5 attacks, and he gets devastating wounds, which is, a critical wound does 3 mortal wounds, so that's pretty silly. Or he can do the dual blades, which is twin linked, 7 attacks at strength 5, minus 2, 2 damage. And then he gives his attached unit +1 to wound, which means while he's attached, he would benefit from that. So strength 6, minus 2, 3 damage, +1 to wound is going to wound most of the game on 4s or better. There's a handful of things that'll wound on 5s. But the thing to note is that unless it's -1 to wound, he's never wounding anything on 6s. Even with his small profile, he's just not wounding it on 6s. So it's, again, he's very good. And he did lose his ability to fight twice, but once per game, he can gain precision. And if he kills a character, you regenerate some pain tokens. And overall, it's a solid unit. Like, I am going to run him this week. I've got a list we'll be going over. I'll probably do a stream on that tomorrow, and we'll talk about it all together. And, we'll kind of go over what I'm looking at. He's very straightforward. Incubi do take a bit of a nerf, but that's okay. It does make him feel less good, but again, like I said, in the context of 10th, he still looks great. And I'd probably drop him with a 5-man and a Venom, and the Venom's there just to kind of give them a wound soak, prevent them from getting killed, and give them a way to get up the board a little faster. The Homunculus is an interesting one. He lost his +1 toughness aura and replaced it for a 4-up feel no pain for whatever unit he's leading. And that's arguably better because you have a theoretically infinite amount of wounds with that unit if your dice are feeling nice. He does have a 6-inch -1 leadership aura. Overall, it's a really good leader, and he can give a lot of durability to his unit. And then he's got some solid anti-infantry, melee, and shooting. It's nothing that's going to break the game, but it'll make your opponent think twice about it, especially if you have the ability to interrupt. He only attaches to Wracks, and I understand why, but I was kind of hopeful I could throw him in with some grotesques. Not because of the 4-up feel no pain. I just kind of was hopeful that the characters could move around a little bit, but they're all pretty much anchored to their dedicated troop choice. And don't get me wrong, like if I could put him in grotesques, that would probably be a bit silly. Like that's a pretty massive tar pit to just throw at somebody when you're like T5, T6, 4 wounds, 4-up feel no pain, and you just have 5 of those bodies right there, just soaking so much more damage than they should. Because even with the 5-up, they'll soak a lot. Unfortunately, racks also only come in 5 to 10 model units, so gone are my days of 20 racks, like just hordes of racks walking up the table. And again, it's just because of the way the indexes are being presented. It's what's in the box. And because the rack box is super old, I think that's the only reason you can take them in a 10-man, because it is only 5 models in the box. But man, if you could only take 5 racks, nobody would ever run them. His dedicated enhancement can force battle shock tests for every unit within 12 inches once per game. It's okay, it's not amazing. Psyker units would take a D3 mortals if it's failed. So situationally good, it can be good. It would stack with his 6-inch aura, so within 6 inches it'd be -2, within 12 it'd be -1, because they're 2 different auras. But at the same time, like I said, it's just like, it's okay. I don't know that it's something I'm spending points on. At 205 points, a fully loaded rack squad with a homunculus can stay on the table longer than you expect it to. A 6-up invuln and a 4-up feel no pain, it means they're going to shrug over half the 1 damage attacks thrown at them. They're gonna chew up a lot more damage and wounds than they should, and that's a great thing to, like, a great problem to have. And I think this is a unit that starts on the table. You use it to camp objectives. You try to use them to bait charges. You may lose the squad and you may not. A lot of times you're going to see opponents maybe kind of overcommit to them because they know that a 4-up Feel No Pain is going to be really swingy and spiky. And so they may just dedicate extra to them to get rid of them. And you can actually use that to your advantage. You can put them up there. You can try to bait those extra charges and then countercharge with your own units and just try to do as much damage as you can. His ability will stack with Urien's, and Urien's basically just lets him put models back. We'll cover that in a little bit, but it's kind of a good combo if you're running a lot of homunculus units instead of doing like a full space raid. We're not going to do much more comboing because a lot of these characters are going to be pretty straightforward. We're going to talk about Lelith. She gives her attached unit +1 strength and an additional AP in melee. It does make her witches strength 4 -2, and she also goes to strength 4 -3, but has anti-infantry and sustained hits on herself. She also gives her unit fight first, and then once per game, she can get 12 attacks and a 3-up invuln that lasts a single fight phase. She is really good for witches. Unfortunately, witches got considerably worse. They don't have any weapons options. They don't get advance and charge. Inherently, you have to use a stratagem to do it. And, there's no real combat drugs for them, so there's not any way to kind of alter their data sheet. They're very straightforward at strength 3 -1, and there's not really much that you can do to buff them. So I feel like if you're going to run witches, Lelith is like an auto include for at least one squad. Obviously, you can't take her in more than one, but you really want her because of her ability to make your witches more effective into things like Space Marines and, higher toughness infantry. Wounding vehicles on 6s is just, it is what it is. The standard Succubus, she does give her unit sustained hits, which is okay, and her unit gets fight first if empowered, which is very good. I can't stress enough how powerful fight first is. And her dedicated enhancement only improves herself. It gives her bonus strength and AP. It doesn't affect the unit she's with. Overall, she's a very one-dimensional character that doesn't do much to benefit her attached unit. Not that she's bad. It's just if I had to, if I had to pick between her and Lelith, I'm taking Lelith every time because Lelith is only 35 points more and just makes witches so much better, right? Because I can wound Gravis on 5s with Lilith's squad. I can wound Terminators on, well, they're only T5, so that's a bad example. I can wound Squighog boys on 5 with Lilith's squad. Whereas the standard ones I'm wounding on 6s because they're only strength 3 and there's no way to get past that barrier. I think that the Succubus is fine, and just through weight of dice and sustained hits, you're going to be able to swing above your weight class. I just don't think it's going to have the punching power that elf armies tend to need in order to make those good trades. So I could be wrong. We're going to find out this week. So Urien Rakarth, pretty solid. He doesn't do a lot. He just heals 3 lost wounds or replace 3 lost racks to a unit within 6 inches of him. On a 2+, he revives. And then, like I said, if you're playing a Coven heavy list, I would probably take him, and then I'd probably take 2 to 3 units of racks with some homunculus in them so that you have these big units kind of floating nearby him that have the 4-up Feel No Pain, and then you want to try to use him to just go, okay, put 3 back. Okay, put 3 back. Because all you're doing with the racks is you're just trying to create some sort of tar pit to slow down your opponent, get them onto objectives and just like tag things and gum up whatever it is they're trying to do. And that's really all racks have ever been great for. To me, the winners are the Archon. He looks awesome. He provides a lot of efficiency for Kabalites. And, they just look like the winners of the battle lines, but we're going to be doing that video soon. The Homunculus looks good, and there's, like I said, if you do a Coven heavy list, there's a lot of ways to make that feel pretty good. And I feel like it really just got a solid side grade, maybe slight bump in overall utility and strength. And, you're giving a squad a theoretically infinite amount of wounds, especially, like I said, if your dice are just like on fire. I mean, I've seen it with 5-up Feel No Pains with the old shield drones, so I can't imagine what having a 4-up Feel No Pain is going to be like. It's going to be funny. I'm going to laugh. Lilith specifically looks like she's much improved, you know, because she's not just a torpedo now. She actually does things for her own unit. And she was always kind of like a worse succubus once you started adding relics and warlord traits. But now, if you account for her enhancement options, she still just looks better than the succubus because she can't be enhanced, but the regular succubus can. And like I said, the price difference is so negligible that I would, if I had to only pick between the two, I would just take Lilith. And then as far as losers go, and this is kind of a stretch, the succubus lost a lot of flavor. She really lost a lot of power because of the lack of layering warlord traits and relics and stuff like that on her. But remember that her standalone datasheet wasn't exactly amazing. It was all the command points or points you put into her to just make her stronger. Lacking combat drugs really kind of hurts the witch cult, especially since they can't advance and charge without the stratagem now. So they're very limited in their mobility. This is a unit that needs to get into combat. They're not going to just sit on an objective, and they can't really threaten anybody with their shooting. Like they have one specific role, and that's it. And it just seems like they're going to be a little lackluster at it. We'll find out. We'll see. We'll see. Overall, I think the characters are really solid, and most of them do what they should do. Drazhar makes Incubi better, Archon makes Cabalites better, and so on. So, everything has a distinct role, and you can kind of build your lists different ways. It's still three different armies inside of one, which is awesome. And that's, the weird way this army interacts has always been the appeal for me. My orcs are a very straightforward army. They're very much a this is what you see, this is what you get. Whereas Drukhari have a lot of cool interactions that make them kind of fun, even when they're not necessarily good. They've got a lot of neat, fun things that you can do. The space raid definitely looks good. The extra pain tokens are going to be good. So you're going to want to try to bring the succubus, the incubi, or not the incubi, the succubus, the archon, and the homunculus. And remember, your name characters will count for those roles because they have the proper keywords. Like Lilith has the succubus keyword, and so on. So, you've always got good options, even if you feel like one or the other is bad, the other one should be good. Upcoming videos, again, we're going to do a list preview for my test run. We'll probably do that on stream in the morning. And then game recaps. I'm going to have a pretty big play day on Thursday because Friday I'm going to be having a family day because I'm going to be gone all day Saturday working an Apocalypse game fundraiser. So we're going to do a little bit of gaming on Thursday, and I'll try to get a recap Friday morning and let everybody know how everything went. And not this week, but next week we'll be doing stream games. So I'll probably have Drukhari getting on the table for a stream game next week. And then we're going to do a list preview for some upcoming games with the orcs as well. And we're going to talk about the winners and losers of that index much more in depth than just war bosses. We're going to cover, my goal is to cover everything in both indexes over time. I've got time. We'll get it done. I'll definitely get it done before the codex comes out. So, also got a 10th edition review in the works. I'm trying to do that a little slowly. I'm going to be honest with you because I'm trying to see if we get some sort of data slate. Obviously, there are some major issues in the game right now that need addressed, and I'm trying to wait to see if GW addresses them before I just come out and be like, hey, here's the real thoughts on what's happening with this edition. Big shout out to my patrons, Captain Too Tall, the real Donnie G, Lord Wellingstone, and the ever handsome Daniel Bodecker. Thank you guys. You are awesome, and I appreciate your support. And links are going to be on the screen, and they'll be in the description. Don't forget, I am doing a giveaway. I will have a link for that in the comments. That's the right word. Link for that in the comments. So make sure you check that out if you haven't already. I'm giving away a box of terrain. Thanks for watching.